What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I take my first pass at the commander in front of us on a budget on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, and consider checking out those links in the description. I'd appreciate it. But today, we're finishing out the Sonic set of Secret Lair commanders, and today we're talking about Miles, Tails, Prower. A 3-mana 3/1 Azorius Fox Artificer with Flash and Flying. Whenever a creature we control enters under our control, or vehicle, we control enters at our control, we draw a card that has Flying, otherwise we put a Flying counter on it. I think Tails is a really interesting commander for vehicles specifically because the idea of putting flying counters on our vehicles feel really good, especially when you start to see how big vehicles can get, right? The vehicle game plan is a very interesting one. Your goal is to get vehicles down, get things down to crew them, and start taking advantage of the game in combat. And that's the goal here. We're just going to try to use flying to our benefit. We do have a lot of vehicles that have flying, so they can draw us cards, which is cool. And we have ways to blink vehicles if we want to, which is an option. It's not something I chose to look a ton into, but I think is a great option you could do for Tails. I want to say a quick thank you to the channel member. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing all of our videos just a teeny bit early, check it out in the link down below for just $1 a month. Well, I think it's obvious if we're going to talk about vehicles that we start talking about vehicles. In no random order, Cosmo's a very interesting creature. On the front side, it has a very odd effect, but on the back, we really normally use it for the Omen Keel on the back side. A 2-mana vehicle that says whenever a vehicle we control hits a player in combat, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library, and we can play lands from among them for as long as they remain exiled. The whole point here is you're nuking your opponent's library into exile, not into their graveyard, so you can't help, those mill decks. As well as we're just having another body that can get flying and hurt our opponents. Brotherhood Vertibird's and a first of many examples of vehicles with flying. Power equal to the number of artifacts we control. We're going to try to get as many as we can to make Vertibird as big as possible. And just crew 2, so very easy to get going. Cybership's a big 8/8 with flying. Cruise for 4, and whenever it hits a player, you can put the top 2 cards of that player's library face down under our control as 2/2 Cybermen. Again, enough to be able to crew Cybership every time and make sure the Cybership starts hitting our opponents and getting those things back. Deluxe Dragster is another interesting one. Can't be blocked except by vehicles. So once we put a flying on, either way, it's probably going to be pretty much unblockable. And whenever it hits a player, we can cast target or instant source from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost and exile it instead of going back to its graveyard. I love this to get things, removals out of people's graveyards. Maybe you get a key thing at the right time out of somebody's graveyard. And it's not a bad body as a 4/3 for crew 2. Peace Walker Colossus may be a big 6/6 with crew 4, but it has a pretty key ability for 2 mana to turn any vehicle into an artifact creature until end of turn. Let you get around some of these pretty large crew costs if you don't want to. Note that Peace Walker Colossus can't animate itself, but I think that's fine. 2 or 4 mana can go a whole long way to make the right vehicles creatures at the right time. Notably, this can be done on your opponent's turn too, right, to block. Reaver Titan, a big 7-mana 10/10. Protection for mana value 3 or less, so it's going to really get around most of the single target removal people are going to try to use on it. And whenever it attacks, deals 5 damage to each opponent. A big old vehicle that we're going to love to see once it gets powered up. Rolling Hamster gets +1/+1 for each hamster you control, and whenever it attacks, you get to make 3 hamster and deal out damage to any target where X is the number of hamsters you control. Just a fun vehicle. Source, once it gets in the air, it's going to be even harder to deal with. Then you've got all the little hamsters on the ground if you need to block with them, and it's just going to get bigger and better right every turn. Salvation Engine from Aether Drift gives all of our other artifact creatures +2/+2. Great, right, for more damage. And then whenever it attacks, we get to bring an artifact from our graveyard back to the battlefield. So if somebody removes a key vehicle and doesn't exile it, cool. We can just bring it back with the engine and get it back for another time around. Probably one of the most popular commanders in this space in Shorokai Genesis Engine. We could pay 1 and tap it to draw 2 cards and then pitch a card, and we make a pilot, a 1/1 pilot that could crew vehicles as though we're power 2 greater. So could crew at 3 power, which is pretty cool. And has a big crew 8. A lot of times Shorokai is just used as a draw engine, but hey, later in the game it can become a big threat as a big 8/8 that's going to have flying, hopefully because of Tails. The Indomitable, whenever a creature we control hits a player, we draw a card, cast, and then crew 3. And we can bring the Indomitable back from our graveyard as long as we have 3 or more tapped vehicles, which is pretty cool. It can be fairly easy to do. And then cast it back out. The new one from Final Fantasy, the Regalia, whenever it attacks, reveal from the top to hit a land and put on the battlefield tapped. Should be easy to get it going and allow us to ramp us every turn so we have more and more mana. Thunderhawk Gunship, already in the air, comes in and makes 2/2 Astartes Warriors tokens, only crew 2, but when it attacks, all of our other creatures get flying. This is really important because Tails can only give the flying to the vehicles, but if we have tokens and other things that we want to attack with as well, now the Gunship can give them flying as well. Hearse can tap to exile up to 2 cards from a single graveyard, and then its power taps equal to the number of cards exiled with it, so you don't want to crew it right away, otherwise it's going to die. But you can grow it over the course of the turns, getting it bigger and bigger, taking key things out of people's graveyards and making a nice set. And then, of course, the big Valor flagship, big 7/7 mana, 7/7 flying first strike lifelink, crew 3. But if we want to, we could cycle it to make a bunch of pilots. Pretty useful to cycle it if you have an easy way to get it back from the graveyard. You could do that, and then you basically net all of those pilots. We do have a lot of ways to make vehicles matter. It's just not all about vehicles. Things like Sid can reduce the cost of vehicles we cast. Katori gives everything crew 2, and then gives an artifact creature of our choice lifelink and vigilance on a turn on the beginning of our combat. Nice to give one of those big vehicles lifelink, right, and get a bunch of life back. Katsumasa has the ability to turn our vehicles into creatures for 3 mana. Not as good as Peace Walker Colossus, but it's still good to have more than one copy of this effect in your deck. But also the nice benefit of putting up to a counter on up to 3 different, basically, vehicles each upkeep of ours, which is huge. Going to grow our vehicles, right, make them more of a threat. Lead is going to untap each other artifact creature at the start of our end step, so hopefully the vehicles can untap and be ready to be crewed, right, to block, and if we're crewing them with artifact creatures. And then for 4 mana, she can make a vehicle tokens named Zeppelin with flying in crew 3. But most of the time, I think lead is a great place to start by untapping all of our other vehicles. Mu Yanling is going to give all of our vehicles flying, so this is going to work well with Tails, making sure we're always drawing. And then whenever one or more creatures we control flying hit a player, we draw a card, and she makes a vehicle when she comes in. Just great value for us. And then from Father to Son, let's just go get a vehicle, reveal it, and put it to our hand. But if we cast it from our graveyard, we get to put it on the battlefield instead. So 2 mana just go get a vehicle from our library to our hand. 7 mana just go put a vehicle on the battlefield. Great ability. You could pair this up with some other things that can go search your library for even artifacts as well to go get exactly what vehicle you want, like Fabricate, just letting you go get any artifact to put into your hand. Emery, Lurker of the Loch, lets you cast artifacts back out of your graveyard, which is pretty useful, especially when they start dying or people start moving them. The Wanderglyph makes a bunch of gnomes, one on everybody's turn, and they get +2/+2 as long as we have a City's Blessing, which means as long as we get to 10 permanents, we're going to get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. Then all our gnomes are 3/3s, either great attackers or great crewers, right, at 3 power. Thoughtcast lets us draw a couple cards, and we have affinity for artifacts, so get all the way down to just 1 blue mana to draw 2 cards. War of Invention lets us tap our artifacts to help cast it, to go get an artifact of our choice and put it on the battlefield. War is great. If you have a bunch of little artifact tokens laying around, you can tap them, help get something out for even cheaper, maybe even just 3 of your own blue mana and tapping a bunch of creatures to pay for the X. The Synthesizer is a card I think still over the course of the game, anytime you see it, is just going to be really beneficial. So whenever an artifact with mana value 3 or greater comes into our control, which is going to be most of our vehicles, you get to make a construct. That construct grows for each artifact you control, are going to become huge threats over the course of a game, and are going to either be great crewers in the mid game or just huge attackers in the late game. Thousand Moon Smithy comes in and makes a white gnome soldier that's power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts and creatures you control. And then during your pre-combat main phase, if you tap 5 untapped artifacts or creatures, you can flip it over into a land, where whenever you use that mana to cast an artifact or a creature, you get to make another one of these gnomes. Again, the gnomes, just like the constructs, are going to become really hard threats to deal with in the late game when they start getting bigger and bigger. Tempered Steel, buff all of our artifact creatures, and then Unstoppable Plan, kind of like Lita, But this one untaps all non-land permanents we control. This is going to untap our creatures as well, meaning we should be able to continue to crew all of our vehicles every, being having them up for blockers as well as attackers. So Unstoppable Plan is almost better than Lead in that sense, because it'll untap all of our mana rocks. It'll untap a lot of great things for us. We also have a trio of lands that care about artifacts. Academy Ruins can put artifacts from our graveyard back on top of our library. Buried Ruin can sacrifice itself to put one back into our hand. So big difference, right? Academy Ruins leaves itself on the battlefield, puts it back into top of the library. Buried Ruin is going to get rid of itself completely, but puts it back to your hand. So a little bit of a difference, but both very useful to have. And then Inventor's Fair can actually pay for and sacrifice itself to just go get an artifact we want, put it into our hand. This is going to be big because a lot of times you really are going to want the right thing at the right time, and Inventor's Fair is going to help you go get that right thing at the right time to deal with what you're dealing with. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again: no deck's ever complete. This is my first pass at Tails, and I think going into testing, there's some things we can do to add some value. Things like Anchor to Reality can help us search for whatever vehicles we want, put them into our hand. Anchor to Reality is right onto the battlefield, which I think is a huge ability. I just wasn't sure what to value this over something like War of Invention or Fabricate, right? There's so many options. You want to kind of cover the spread. Teleportation Circle feels like a really good idea, so you can actually exile an artifact and bring it back in under its owner's control. This, I think, is huge because we can bounce our own vehicles, especially our own flying vehicles, and just draw more cards with tails, which I feel like could be important. And we could definitely, if you want to work yourself more into this, making sure that you're drawing more cards. And I thought Indomitable Archangel seemed cool, just giving all of our artifacts Shroud. It can be a downside because Shroud means that we can't target our own artifacts with things, but I think more often than not, it's just going to help us protect our board and make sure they stick around to really hurt our opponents. Well, let's do what we love to do on the channel the most and get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest on our channel is not to find Magical Christmas Land, but it's just to get in some gameplay scenarios and kind of understand how we're going to set up our board. Here we're keeping a 3-lander, awkward with the Chancery. We got to be a little bit careful since it bounces one of our lands back to our hand, that we don't go to hand size. But great removal. We got the Valor. We got the Lifecraft engine. Lifecraft's an intriguing one. So when it comes in, you choose a type. All your vehicles are that in addition to their other types. And each of those, that type basically gets +1/+1. What we want to think about here is what other creature types are prevalent in our deck. Do we go pilots? Do you go gnomes? Do you go, there's so many options for Lifecraft engine. That's something we'll have to think about depending on what we see. So your turn, when we see Cultivator's Caravan, a vehicle they can tap for mana. On turn 2, I don't think there's anything I can do. All right, Tails is 3 mana. We see Brotherhood Vertibird, another great vehicle. Fortunately, here on turn 3, I think we're just going to end up losing a card unless I want to nuke some removal. I guess we could cycle. Well, no, we can't cycle Valor's Flagship. So a little bit awkward here. We've got to bounce a land back to hand. And now we're going to end up with 8 cards. I was hoping we'd hit something else, but we just didn't. Question is, what do you get rid of? Proudy's Prototype can make us more pilots. A pilot kind of seems like a great option for the Lifecraft engine because this can make us tokens. The Caravan's going to be great for mana. This is a great attacker. I mean, I like Lifecraft, but I guess it feels good, especially with all these pilots, because then they can crew for 1 higher. I don't want to just dump the flagship because I really like the flagship, but I'm just trying to think of what makes the most sense. I almost feel like it's the Caravan, even though I love the idea of the Caravan just to give me more mana. Don't really want to lose removal, but maybe for the purposes of just showing off what the deck's trying to do, we will. Of course, now we get the land this turn. I can go Tails, but I think it needs to be something like Caravan, just to not take the turn off. Unfortunately, I guess if we're going to do that, we do the farmland, right? Because it comes in tapped. And then this turn, do the plains, or the island. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So I'm thinking Tails plus Prototype. Mannequin Core is kind of cool. It can grow bigger. Can copy our artifacts when we cast them as our engines go up. I was thinking Tails. Then what? We could do Vertibird, draw a card. We could do Prototype, and it gets flying, which could be a nice threat. We could do Lifecraft engine again. I guess calling pilots, and it would get a flying counter. And go from there. All right, Soul Ring helps. That means 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana if we want to do that. That's perfect flagship mana. My thought was even just like Mendicant Core and like the prototype getting the flying counter. Actually, I think I'll do the Vertibird and draw a card. 2, 3, 4, 5. I have what, 2 mana left? 1, 2. 1, 2 there. 1. We've got 3 mana left. And then my thought here is Mendicant Core is what? Pretty big. It could crew the Caravan if we want to. It could crew the Lifecraft engine to attack. Because we do want to deal damage with the core because we want to get our engines started, right? Because as soon as our engines get up to max speed, then we can start copying every vehicle that comes in, getting second copies of them. So I think I kind of would want to just use Tails to crew the engine and attack, right? Getting the damage in and getting our speed to go up. Because then as we come into the next turn, right? Again, we want to try to do this as best we can. And you only have to pay 1 mana to copy. I really want to try to copy something like that flagship. So I'll bring in the Prodigy. It's going to get a flying counter. I think I'm willing to just hold up, removal and all that. Crew the Lifecraft engine. Or is it crew the Vertibird? Maybe crew the Vertibird. Vertibird's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 6/3 or 6/4. Same thing with the Mendicant Core is a 6/3. But I kind of like the Vertibird since it's already in the air. Right, have it attack, get our rate up. That makes us a pilot, right, because of Prototype's ability. And then now, right, the pilot's getting the buff from the Lifecraft engine. And now the important point is that, Mendicant Core is up to block. Same thing with, we used Tails to crew. So Mendicant Core is going to be up to block, and it can crew into these guys if need be. Port Town's going to come in tapped, but that's a-okay. I think we just use Tails to crew their Vertibird again, attack, make another pilot. It's going to deal damage going up to max speed. Now my thought is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So pay 7 for the. Oh no, that's right. Valor's flagship's legendary. Okay, well, we could have copied it, but again, it's legendary. I forgot it was legendary. So that comes in, draws us a card. At least we have the pilots now. Again, we have Mendicant Core, which can crew this and block if we need it to. Again, I think we're in really good shape. It's just going to be, now we have enough of these pilots that are 2/2s. Right, so now they're crewing as 4s, so they're going to be able to really crew all of our vehicles. And now on this next turn, we can hold up the removal and just crew away. Crew the flagship, crew the Vertibird. Mendicant Core can attack, right? It's pretty high, and now we can just hopefully dole out some damage, gain some life back, and hope to continue, right, our dominance there. And if somebody wipes the board, then hopefully we get a creature back down to keep crewing our vehicles. Playtest number 2 here, keeping a 4-lander with Sai, who can make us stop turns whenever we cast artifacts. We see Cargo Ship, a vehicle that can tap for a colorless only to cast an artifact spell or activate artifact abilities. And then an offer. Mech Hanger does have the ability to tap for any color only to cast a pilot or vehicle, and it can actually tap for 3 to make a vehicle into a creature for the turn. So kind of an interesting set of abilities there. I wonder here is, do we get the Cargo Ship down now, or do we try to wait till after Sai comes down, or wait till after Tails comes down to draw? I'm gonna wait and go for Tails, or we can flash Tails in, so we can do it. I do this. I can't do Sai plus the Cargo Ship. Something about do the ship and draw. Let's try to get ourselves some more mana for a future turn, right? Now in this turn, we're looking at 6 mana. One of it can only be used for vehicles. I love the idea of the Indomitable to start drawing cards, because Tails could attack and just draw cards. It's already in the air. So you could go something like the Indomitable. It's going to get a flying token, flying counter. And then my thought is just attack with tails, draw the card off the Indomitable, right? Just dig a little bit deeper. This turn, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 7. So we're just 1 mana off of that Parhelion. Go the Hamster. You could go like, we could go like Psy plus Emery and kind of build up, but I think it's just the Hamsphere. It comes in the air. And then I think Tails just cruise the Indomitable and have it attack. More damage, still draws us a card. Right. And we come to our next turn. 6, 7, 8 mana now. Master's great. Can start buffing our other creatures. My thought here is now we really want to get creatures in that can start crewing, right? So the Ethereum can come in. It's a power tough equal number of artifacts we control, which is currently 5, so it can crew any of these 3. If I do this and then this, now I'm making a Thopter, and that Thopter is a 2/2 because of the Ethereum, which I believe can crew the cargo ship if I wanted to. Would just be another thing that could potentially hit and draw off of Indomitable, right? Or I could use those 3 to crew the Hamsphere, and I could crew the Indomitable with Master. They both attack. Hamsphere makes the hamsters dole some damage out, and then probably would end up drawing 2 this turn. And then I think we're in a good spot. I mean, we've got plenty of bodies to keep crewing. If somebody wipes the board, it would kind of stink, but I think we'd still be able to keep the party going. Because now in this turn, we have 8 mana for the Parhelion. The mech's kind of fun. If you crew it, it automatically crews something else. Can really help crew some of those bigger ones. But Parhelion, right when it attacks, makes those angels. I don't mind going for like the Parhelion. It'll draw us a card. It doesn't have haste, which kind of stings, but it's kind of a great blocker. And then do the same thing, Indomitable plus Hamsphere, and just keep attacking Hamsphere. Now be a 11 in the air with its ability plus Ethereum. That makes us another Thopter. And I think we're just off to the races, right? We've got good pieces. We do still have the mana up for the offer if somebody tries to wipe the board. We do still have blockers up to crew these guys if we need to block. So I think we're in good shape on that one. Remember, we're probably high bracket 2, low bracket 3 here. So I mean, we expect the games to be a little bit longer and to be a little bit tighter, right, in combat. Here, last one, we're looking at a 3-lander with Mendicant Core. We got the Voyage Home, just like Thoughtcast, except it's 7 mana to start, goes down for each artifact, draws 3 and gains 3, and then Lita. And then Born to Drive, we can enchant an artifact or creature. As long as it's a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature or vehicle we control. So kind of interesting. We can pitch to get pilots, but again, good way to really grow a creature. A couple tap lands, which is kind of brutal, but I think we need to get him down and get him going. My thought is I'd like to start getting Mendicant Core out. Armed and Armored can just turn all of our vehicles into all our vehicles into creatures for the turn. So now here, 4 mana, we can get Tails in. Try to attack with Mendicant Core this turn is my thought. Maybe we can get our speed up. Let's just say for the purpose of this that we could get our speed up. I know it's not as guaranteed on that one. But let's say we could. Out here, 5 mana. Katori's 3. We only have 1 artifact, so we can't just jump into the Voyage Home. I play Peace Walker Colossus. It goes in the air. Try to attack. Tails should be able to turn on that for this turn. Hold up. Maybe a couple mana, but I think just not much we can do that turn. This turn. All right, so now our hope is we can get some extra pieces in. Born to Drive could be interesting to really buff up Tails if we wanted to. Katori could go ahead and give something like Peace Walker Colossus lifelink this turn if we were to go ahead and crew it with Tails if we want to, because it's already in the air, I guess. So that makes sense. If we go Katori, maybe Born to Drive on Peace Walker Colossus, and then crew it with Tails. Now this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Gain 10, go all the way up on max speed. The Born to Drive stays attached, so now we can do that. There's Interface Ace, can crew multiple vehicles per turn. By Voyage, I'm at 1, 2, so I'd be voyaging for 5. I do this, I've got 4 mana left. 1, 2, 3. So that'd be 4 mana. That was my thought, was try to get another artifact in before I draw 3 and gain 3. Peace Walker Colossus just got a little bit bigger. It can crew Peace Walker and then automatically untap, which is pretty cool. Take the attacks again. A little bit more awkward this time around, but now, when we play that Vertibird, right, we can copy it with Mendicant Core, so now we're in a good spot there. They're only crewing 2, so pretty much no matter what we put down, it's going to crew 2. And I think we're just in good shape. It's good to remember, right, with the deck being a little bit more budget and being kind of lower end of bracket 3, we're not expecting these really explosive turns all the time. But I think it's still going to be a really fun deck, and you can really tune this to where you want it to be with the vehicles. But I'd love to know what you think of Tails, and I will catch you all in the next one.